So not up on stage.
No, not up on stage. But the poor guy who had done the scene in the movie is in the room and got very embarrassed because I kept talking about it.
Whew. Tough act to follow for Chuck.
Yeah, it was a little hard. So Pat Mitchell introduces the moderator for the panel, which was Damon Lindelof, who's the executive producer of Lost.
Yay!
And so he does a little thing talking about the show. He brings out Josh Schwartz for a minute. Josh introduces the clip, the montage package that they put together. He calls it Chuck versus the Montage, and it's about 15 or so minutes of part of the pilot and then quirky moments from the season.
Uh-huh.
And then the clip show ends and everyone comes back and everyone is on stage. And so the stage setup had Big Mike, Mark Christopher, there we go, Scott Krinsky, Vic, so the guy who plays Lester, Julia Lang, Josh Gomez, Captain Austin, so Ryan, Mick G in the middle, and then it went Adam Baldwin, Yvonne, Zach, Chris, Josh, and Damon. That's the panel.
That's quite a crowd up there.
It was a little crowded, not as crowded as other panels, but still pretty crowded. And they sort of start off asking questions about the panel. Damon had this sort of very James Lipton vibe going. That's what he was striving to do all night long. So he had blue cards. From inside the actor studio.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of the panel, he actually asked everyone who was there one of the questions from the Proust survey.
I love those.
So everyone got asked that question, and then I think it was Yvonne, Zach, and Josh, I think it was, had different questions because he obviously didn't have enough questions for everyone that was on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sort of a free-flow moderator, so he asked a couple of questions, let the cast talk a lot, and then would sort of interrupt when he had something on a blue card that sort of segued nicely in. So there was some talk of Zach and his big beard that everyone has seen by now into a question, and he was like, no, this is not a Jesus beard. Segued into this question from one of the reporters from the New York, I think it's the New York Post. I can't remember. Hold on, let me find it. Oh, no, the Star Ledger. So Alan Sippenwall had asked this question about Sarah's Wienerlicious outfit.
Oh, that
went into the, I'm going to ask you a question about, it was like Jews in Poland, and I can read the question, but it's just so out there, but we all just start cracking up.
Because Josh Schwartz, of course, is Jewish.
Yes,
and
Josh Schwartz is Jewish, and there was something about Seth Cohen in the mix, so his previous Jewish archetypal character and Chuck Bartowski together, and some sort of, Jewish assimilation, dominance, It went somewhere, and you can find the exact question from one of the guys, the Futon Critic, has been doing reviews of all of the Paley Center events that relate to TV, most of them, and he has the exact quote. So if anyone ever wants to go look, where you go.
We've linked to that on chucktv.net, so you can go over to thefutoncritic.com and read. I believe it's a almost minute by minute report of the panel. So, and that's a lot of fun to read.
Yeah, as much as can be recapped, because these panels are really, they're all sorts of crazy, and I applaud the guys at the Futon Critic for actually going back and getting this done, because it makes trying to remember what happens so much easier, because if you're in the audience and you just start laughing, you miss something, and it's nice to have it again when you're back there.
And with this crowd, it seems like you'd be laughing quite a bit. I mean, once Zach and Josh get going, especially.
Yeah, and it was really awkward to have Adam and McGee and Ryan in between them. So there's all this sort of, like, Josh started looking over and Zach started looking over, and they were talking over each other. And the other fun part is that actually Ryan and Josh Gomez started going at it a lot.
Oh, fun.
So they were just quipping all the time, and I can't even remember all of them. But there's plenty of moments where Josh and Ryan just start quipping about Ellie and then about other things, and just sit there and go, okay.
And we should note that Sarah Lancaster, who plays Ellie, the other half of the awesome couple, was sick, and so she was not at the panel.
That's right.
So it was really quite the boys' club, because only Yvonne and Julia were there to represent.
And Julia were a little on the quiet side, but not. That just sort of happens. Especially with the size of the panel. The guys who were in the Nerd Herd also sort of were a little more quiet than everybody else. So it was hard to hear stuff from Mark Christopher and Scott and Vic, but they were still there. And they had awesome moments in between.
That's cool. So tell us some of the scoop that came out of the panel.
Oh, gosh, now I'm going to use that Futon Critic for the handy-dandy. What did I forget? It's been a week. There was talk of season 2 and sort of where they're starting, and that they're doing a reset of reminding people why everything's here, but they're not going to, so it's a reset to sort of get the story started again, not in terms of what happened, and they're not going to do any sort of retcon and screw with something that happened last season, because people noticed that.
Right. And they start filming, I think Josh Schwartz called it the pilot for season 2. They're going to start filming that in May, aren't they?
Yes. The writers are already back in the room breaking season 2, and I think they're going back to work at the beginning of May.
Awesome.
A lot of different shows are starting different weeks, and like way too many Paley panels to remember who's starting when. But, yeah, I think they're starting at the end of May.
That'll be great. I like that it kind of gives them a lot of time to get season 2 laid out so that they have a really good plan for where they're going, and they've got time to execute it, not just plan it out, but execute it. So
exactly. So there's lots of time for the writers to work and get most of season 2 broken before you start filming it, because then if you know where the story's going, it helps inform how you shoot.
I heard that Josh and Chris each had were each vying for their own special guest star for the premiere.
Yes. There was talk of Jean-Claude Van Damme and, I'm going to draw a blank on who the other one was.
Dolph Lundgren was the other one.
Yes, okay.
From Rocky IV.
I've never seen Rocky. So.
Oh, heresy.
So they each had those, and that was just entertaining because we're sitting there, well, in the audience going, what? We can't help but laugh because they started talking about Jean-Claude Van Damme and movies, which is just entertaining by itself. Let's see, Adam Baldwin was being quite the jokester all night long, too. He likes to make jokes, and that was fun, and he deadpans, he's really good at deadpan humor, and that came across really, really well with everybody else in the room. He also got a huge round of applause for all of the people who loved Firefly, so there was lots of love. Ryan tries not to say awesome as much now. That was one of the fan questions that did have me sort of laughing, because he said it maybe a dozen times or so during the panel, and then somebody asks the question and trying to say, no, I'm trying not to say it as much, and I try and say things are outstanding or something else that I cannot remember right now.
Trying to distance himself from the catchphrase or just save it all for the show?
Yeah, there was that, which was funny because from the Midwest, and he said that he grew up saying it, so it's a hard habit to break. I'm
from the Midwest, and yes, it is.
Just like I'm a Californian, and if you'll notice, I say like a lot.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. Josh Gomez really wants to know where he lives and with whom he lives, which I thought was great.
Oh, good point. We've never seen his apartment or futon or whatever.
And Schwartz's comment was that he lives at home with Mom. So Morgan lives with his mother. Excellent.
That could makes for some fun times with Morgan.
Fun times with Morgan and Anna.
Exactly. Ooh.
Since we already saw Anna's parents.
I believe that they revealed some of the original information for Czech when they were first breaking it out, and then in the original pilot, there were two girlfriends, or
there was Sarah, and so there's the girl that he got dumped for by Bryce.
Jill.
So there's Jill, and then there was Kayla, who was his next door neighbor, and then there was Sarah. And so there were 3 women, and it didn't play right, according to Josh and Chris when they tested it and were watching, and they went, that's a lot of girls.
For a nerd, yeah.
Yeah.
We actually had, in our gallery for a while, we had the publicity still for Kayla, for the actress. Yeah, and I actually, now that they've addressed this publicly, I think we'll go ahead and put it back up just as kind of a archival document to say this.
You can have fun with that in our shows where they change cast members from the original pilot to what made it on the air, and you've got 2 sets of publicity photos.
Exactly. It's interesting to see what changes between a pilot and the show going on the air.
Yeah.
Now, the original title for Czech was also mentioned, right?
Yes. The original title was supposed to be Scenario 5, which sounds a little dorky and geeky, which was another source of conversation during the panel. And that was from McG. So McG commented that Joss Whedon was a geek and J.J. Abrams was a nerd. And it got some sort of reaction from the crowd that I couldn't quite tell what was what, but it was said.
Interesting. They're going to end up writing their own dictionary definition of geek and nerd by the time the show's over.
I'm sure, just because it's such a part of the show and what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
As much as it's about the action, it's also about the office environment and all of the nerdiness that comes with working at a place like the Bymore. And just sort of, I think it was Josh who said something about how much he enjoys watching Casey go full into being part of the Bymore staff now, and just how much he's dedicated to sales. And
oh my gosh, he is.
It was the funniest comment about Casey as a character, and how much he's sort of, if he's doing something, he's going to do it all out. So when he's working at the Bymore, he's so in tune with what he needs to do to make a sale or something along those lines that he's just intently, that's what Casey's going to focus on right now. And 5 minutes later, if he has to go do something spy-related, he's going to focus on that.
I love that about his character, that he is so focused on whatever the task at hand might be.
Yeah, so that was really funny to hear in the middle of a panel.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't necessarily get to see a lot, or you don't think a lot about when you're just watching the show. So it's really kind of nice to have the entire cast talking about their experience on the show,
mm-hmm.
and what it means to them to be a part of this and what they get out of it.
It sounds like they really enjoy themselves and enjoy their jobs.
They really, really do. There was another sort of piece of information. Chuck is going to be back at Comic-Con in July for anyone interested in flying to San Diego.
That's awesome. We actually are planning to be there to cover that. So,
and there's also a comic book. So they mentioned the comic book as well as talking about Comic-Con, and that there are 6 issues of this Chuck comic book from DC that are going to be at Comic-Con, and hopefully some footage from season 2. So we're hoping, I think, to have enough of the season 2 pilot, as I'm going to call it,
mm-hmm.
shot and edited to present at Comic-Con.
Yay! Well, that's exciting that they're going to be back there at Comic-Con. I mean, that's really their demographic. So
yeah, it's a great place, and I find it funny, being that I'm a fan of the OC, that after years of talking about Seth going to Comic-Con, putting out a comic, Chuck actually gets to go to Comic-Con and
have a comic. Have a comic.
The OC part of me also finds it funny that the imprint that is making the Chuck comic is also the imprint that was going to try and sell Seth's comic book.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, yes, my OC continuity.
Yes.
It's a happy day.
Yay for synergy.
Yes, yay for Josh remembering what he did one time and doing it again.
In real life.
Yes. There was also a conversation about a battle of Chucks during this panel. The Pushing Daisies panel, which features a girl named Chuck.
Right.
Is Saturday. And then the Gossip Girl panel was the Saturday after this one.
And they have a Chuck also, don't they?
Yes, they also have a Chuck. And so there was a conversation about what sort of Chuck would win. And I think they determined that Chuck Bartowski would win, but they didn't really talk about the Chuck from Gossip Girl. So I don't know if Zach or Josh, not Zach, was just sort of delaying having to talk about Chuck because he did it again on Saturday.
Uh-huh.
Or Chuck Bass, not Chuck Bartowski. They're both Chuck B's. That's even worse.